Hey guys, welcome back to the Glide tutorial number 2. So in this one we do another fade, but we also start setting up the menu scene. So without further ado, let's get right into it. It's going to be quite a simple episode and hopefully very fast. We are going to go on our canvas in the preloader scene and just set our fade to the appropriate color. So back on my image, I'll set that back to white. Now what I'll do is hit Ctrl and N on the keyboard to create a new scene. Or you could simply go under File and then you have the new scene up here. I'm going to hit Ctrl S and then save this as the menu scene. So simply call it menu. Drag and drop your menu inside of the scene folder. And here we go. Now at this point we need to start laying down the canvas for our scene. So I'm going to right click and then create an image and call this image fade. So we're going to have another fade effect right here because we're moving from the preloader, which ends up with a fade out, and then we're going to do a fade in right here on this new scene. So it looks like it simply showed a blank image and then here we are on the menu. So on this canvas, let's make sure we actually set the same exact property. So on the canvas scaler, we put that on scale with screen size, and the reference resolution is going to be 1280 by 800. Now this fade object needs to take the whole screen, so click on it, then make sure to expand on both axes. We're going to be setting all the fields right here back to 0, and here we go, we have our fade already. Now of course we're going to be needing a little bit more than that, so what we're going to be doing right here is we are going to create a canvas group on top of that fade. So just add a new component is canvas group, and we're going to be creating a script for the menu scene, and this one is going to be quite a big one in the end. So let's just make sure we start right here by creating a new script called menu scene. And it's going to be on a empty game object. So right click in the hierarchy, create empty, and let's create a menu scene object. Put the transform back on 0 and let's just drag and drop the script on top of it. So let's double click that script, and what we're going to be doing in here is pretty much the same exact thing we did in the preloader. So let's quickly write it down. We're going to be saying private canvas group, fade group, and then private float fade in speed is equal to, say, something like 0.33. So I'll explain this one really quickly. The fade in speed is going to be multiplied by time.time. So say you want to be having a fade in that takes 3 seconds, you're going to be doing 1 divided by 3, and that's going to be your number right here. So if I wanted my fade screen to use 10 seconds of my time, then I'll be putting that on 0.1. So in my case, I want it to be lasting 3 seconds, so I'll put it on 0.33. So what I want to be doing right here in my private void start is simply find and set the fade to white, just like we did in the very first line of the preloader. So actually, you know what? We can actually copy this from this very script and just paste it in here. So grab the only canvas group in the scene and then set the alpha to 1. Because when we're going to be doing our editing, we don't want to be seeing our alpha. Even though it's default on 1 right now, we're going to be putting it on 0, and just make sure we toggle it on in the start. And then in the update, let's go down here, private void update. We want to be doing our fade in. We don't even have to think about a fade out right now, since we don't really have any other way to transition from here. But for our fade in, let's do fade group dot alpha is equal to 1 minus time.time since level load times fade in speed. So this way we're going to have our nice fade in. It's going to last 3 seconds. And that is pretty much it for our fade in. Let's actually test it out. Now to test this out, we're going to go from the preloader and then go to the menu scene. However, this is not going to work right now because we never actually changed the scene in the preloader. So what we'll need to do is head back in our preloader.cs really quickly and change this line right here for scene manager. And then we need to include that, so control and dot. We're going to be using Unity Engine.scene management. So up here, make sure you have this using statement at the very top. So scene manager dot load scene, and we're loading the scene called menu, just like this. Now once we arrive in the menu scene, it does the fade in. It is still not going to work at the moment because in order to transition from one scene to another while the game is playing, you need to add it to your build settings. So we're going to be doing that right now. Go under File, build settings, and drag and drop the preloader first. Make sure this one is always the first one, and then menu second. We're now going to hit play. So that is our preloader right here, 3 seconds total, then it fades out. And we're now in the menu scene with a nice 3-second transition. Now, of course, we're going to need a lot more in that menu scene to make it look good. So we're going to start by the very first thing, right? So we're going to be starting by putting some buttons in there to actually head over to the level selection and also to the shop. So in my canvas, what I'll be doing right here is click on fade. Make sure I set the canvas group right here, the alpha, to 0, so I can actually see what I'm doing without seeing the fade. I will now right click on canvas, create a button, and now it is really important that you put the button before the fade. So make sure you drag and drop this and make sure it is above the fade. This way it won't be displayed in front of the fade, but of course behind the fade. So that button right here is going to be for, it's going to be the play button. We're going to duplicate it, and this one is going to be the shop button. Again, make sure it is in front of the fade. Oh, sorry, in the back of the fade. Now, since we do have heart in our project, we are going to be changing those and actually making them look somewhat good right off the get-go. So what I'll be doing right here is go under image, and in my image, I'm going to be looking for my buttons. However, we do not have any buttons right here, and the reason is quite simple. It's because they don't have the right texture type. To fix this, I will head over to my artwork folder and then button. Make sure I select all of these by doing a shift selection, so hold shift and click the last one. Then I'll go over to texture type, make sure it is on sprite 2D and UI, hit apply, and here you go. You have a bunch of new sprites. For my play button, I simply want to be using a arrow, so 1 arrow in this case. And for the shop button, I'll be using the one with the token, so 1 token. Now, of course, they don't look too good right now. We need to resize them and position them properly, so let's go ahead and do that. First off, let's open them and remove the text component that we have below them. And now they look like this. Of course, still not viable for us. Let's take the play button, anchor it at the very bottom left here, and also hold shift while doing it, so you can actually move the pivot point as well. Now put that on, say, 50. Position Y is going to be on 50 as well. And let's put the width on something like 200 by 200. This way it looks a little bit better already. Now, same thing for the shop button. However, we're going to be anchoring it on the other side. So this side, let's make sure we hold shift while we're doing it. Now for position X, we're going to be doing -50, and position Y is going to be 50. Width is going to be the same, so 200 by 200, and it's going to look like this. Now we're going to go ahead and add a new image to the canvas. It is going to be the splash screen. So let's right click on the canvas, new image, make sure it is in front of the fade, or sorry, in the back of the fade. That is going to be the splash image. Change the source image for our splash. Here it is. Now we need just proper scaling, and it's going to look somewhat decent. So let's do 300 by 150 and just move it up right here. We can also scale it up with the tool as soon as you find a proper aspect ratio. Alright, so one more thing I'd like to do before we close this episode is to open up my script and create 2 functions for our buttons. So in my menu scene, I'll head down here. This is going to be the button section. Let's just make sure we label it, and then do a public void on play click. And another one just below that, public void on shop click. And we can input some simple debug.log in here. So debug.log, play button has been clicked. Same exact thing for the on shop. So shop button has been clicked. And we're going to be linking those functions to the buttons themselves. So on the play button, let's head over to the button component, click on the plus sign, and then drag and drop the menu scene here. Under the menu scene, we're going to see all the components, including our own, so menu scene component, and then click on, this is the play button, let's do on play click. Same thing for the shop button. And we're going to be doing on shop click. One thing that bothers me right here, and I need to change really quickly, is this play button. We're actually going to be clicking on play, but it's gonna push us over to this side. A little bit later on, if you saw the final product, this play button is not actually pointing in the right direction. So I'll take my rotation tool by clicking on E and just rotate it this side. Now what happens in this case is that the actual transparency in the background is not the right way either. So I'll be changing the image right here from 1 arrow to 2 arrow like this. Now the 1 and the 2 are basically the same exact image, however the fade is inverted, so it looks like you're actually clicking on it. So while we're here, we're also going to be assigning a highlighted state for those 2 buttons. On the play button, I'll head over to the transition right here under the button component, and instead of doing a color tint, we'll be doing a sprite swap. Now the first sprite right here is 2_arrow. For the highlighted one, let's actually use 1_arrow. The shop button is going to be the same exact thing, but instead of putting 1 down here in the highlight, we're going to be putting 2. So 2 and then token in this case. Alright, so we're ready to give this a try. Let's go ahead and just start the game from the preloader. As always, you always start the game from the preloader. And then here we go. So we get our nice screen like that. If we click on this button, nothing happens. So we're not getting any feedback from the highlight or any feedback from the console when we press on it. And it's because the fade is actually hiding it. If you go under canvas right here and you actually just delete the fade, as you can tell, we now get the highlight. So what happens right here is that the fade is pretty much just blocking all inputs, which is quite normal because it is in front of everything. But let's actually fix the input problem by opening up the menu scene. Under canvas, choose the fade, and under canvas group, you're going to disable interactable and also block raycast. Just to make sure that this does not happen again, make sure you save everything and let's give it a final try. So we're launching the game right here. We have our nice fade screen, 3 seconds, and then we got 3 seconds of that fade in screen right here. And as you can tell, the highlight works. If I click on them, it says play button has been clicked or shop button has been clicked. So this is actually where we're going to be ending today's episode. I hope you guys learned something, and of course, if it did, leave a like on the video and also share the tutorial around. So if you give me more watch time, I get more time to spend on this, and it's just going to be a good time. We're going to be making good games. It's going to be incredible, and you have all that time now to click on the button on the screen that's going to take you to the next video. And that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you there.